probably preaching to the converted, because you're probably all campaigners in your own place and in your own right. But nevertheless, I just want to say a bit more detail on what Claire has said, and then we can have further discussions about it, because there are actually secreted away amongst you lots of people from Sussex Defend the NHS. And if you are, I won't tell you who they are, and if you are in Brighton or in Sussex, then you need to come along and join us, clearly. One of the important things is, if you look at our what's it here, you can see, thank you, banner, it's campaigners, workers, campaigners and communities together. And I think that's one of our big strengths, is that we're a completely motley crew who, it was only about 4 years ago that, 6 of us gathered in a back room in a pub and said, there's something terrible going on here, we are not putting up with this anymore. And it's really interesting to think that now, although we are working in Carl's black hole, thank you for the reminder, there are every month, there are about 25, 30 people who get together in a room just down there every month, and that's just the organisers. We have a mailing list of more than 2,000 strong, which is increasing all the time. And as you say, we've got a very, I'll tell you some of the things that we've been doing. But we're organised within that, we're organised into, I think it's 7 subgroups. We've got people doing press, we've got the website, we've got health workers working as a small group, we've got a GP's action subgroup, we've got a group, as you can tell from what Carl was saying, who irritate the CCG and the HWB by challenging what they do, asking questions and so on, demonstrating outside their meetings, going into the public galleries of their meetings, so that we can really try and put them on the spot. I think that's all. No, one important one, and more recent one, is a group who are now liaising with the national network of action campaigns around the country, which is increasingly important, because although there are local battles to be fought in terms of what is being commissioned locally in Brighton, it's exactly the same all over the country, so wherever you're from, that's what's happening in your locality as well. But now, as we can see, as Claire mentioned, and as we can see from this, I don't know, there are some of the copies of these that Abby put around just now, from the organisation Health Campaigns Together, who are now beginning to pick up on what, again, absolutely nobody knows about, because that's all part of the plan, isn't it? These sustainability and transformation plans, which are going to produce large regional organisations which speed up the preparation for the complete and utter sell-off of everything in the NHS at the moment, which is the worst possible thing that can possibly happen. So how can us as a little organisation in Brighton do anything to affect this? But I think what we can do, we have to all come together to channel this anger and passion that we have sustained. I mean, it's unbelievable. We were down leafleting the conference this morning at 8 o'clock. This is a typical day, and we are all working way beyond our pay scales on this. I'm going to have to complain to the management in Sussex. Anyway, and then at lunchtime, we were supporting local people from one of the outlying suburbs in Brighton, Bevendine, because their GP surgery is threatened with closure, because a private company who were running 5 GPs across the city decided they weren't making enough profit, they were going to close them, because the GP funding arrangements were changed. One is going to, I think, there are 4 now who are threatened with closure, and today was the meeting when the Health and Wellbeing Board were going to receive the recommendations from NHS England South East as to what they were going to do. So up the street we went with people who've never been doing anything like that in their lives before. I mean, the politicisation that's going on around this, which is so important if we're going to shift anything, is fantastic. And we came up and we shouted and yelled and had our banners outside the meeting. The result, is this it? Unfortunately, what would you expect? You know, those 4 surgeries are actually going to close, which is totally contradictory, I mean, to anything that the people of Brighton and Hove want, but it's totally contradictory when you think about the aims that the CCG talk about, that NHS England talk about reducing health inequalities. They've just decided to close a surgery in one of the most unequal and the most the socially deprived areas of Brighton. Great, thanks. But it's not the end of the fight. We're not giving up, and we'll be carrying on that fight and helping that community, working with that community to do something about their GP provision. So what else have we been doing? So apart from all these little subgroups that we have, organising things and continuously the whole time, we also have pop-up groups. We did a drama in the university last year, which was very successful. And we're doing, coming back to this carve up of the country, we are going to have a public meeting about that very soon as well. And so those campaigns continue all the time. I think Carl said something really important about what's happening, and that is this business about there being many, many remits around these organisations that are commissioning, that are going ahead with all this privatising, selling off of the NHS. It's really hard to get a handle on. And this issue is proving really, really difficult to explain to people, to get people angry about, because unless people are angry, and there are, 300,000 people in Brighton and Hove, we only ever manage to get through to tens of them rather than the hundreds and thousands. What the hell can we do? So we do pop-up events like die-ins out in the middle of town and things like that. We do get press coverage, but it's tiny. So that's one of the most difficult things, is putting things into language that that we can all understand. It's so confusing. So we keep trying to do that. So that educational role of us, just in the locality, is so important. So it's about explanation, and it's also as part of this politicisation of people as well, which is so important. So it's so worth keeping going, even though it looks as if we're in a black hole, and we're not going to give up. So you can do the same in your locality, wherever you are. Thank you. What have I missed? Oh yes, buy a T-shirt and buy a badge, and our things are at the back there. There's Valerie. What have I missed? Anything else? Well, anything else, other members of Sussex Defend can answer in a minute when we're talking. Campaigning, keep going, the fight goes on.